Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for a book update. So I actually did double time, and went to the library and the Gibbons bookshop. Now, with the bookshop though, that was kind of more of a yes. I wanted to go buy some books for cheaper than what it would cost me to buy books at Books A Million or even the Country Bookshop, which is the independent bookstore. Um, but also I wanted to patron the coffee shop in there. Which sadly they are parting. The coffee shop is parting from my used bookstore due to irreconcilable differences. At least that's my word. That's not the words that they use. But I was, and which is really sad. And a lot of people are not happy about that. And a lot of people there's a petition going on to, make sure that doesn't happen. And I have since I haven't been here, I haven't lived here, but I've lived here for like 8 years, but I still don't feel as strongly. What made me sad, and I did make friends with the manager. I'm friends with the manager, and I like the coffee shop, though I don't use it that often because I'm thinking, oh, I could just get coffee at home. But it is sad, and I hope I either hope that they don't leave or whoever the replacement is a good company that people like. But I think it's hard in this kind of community because of there's a close knit feeling with the people in this community. They're a very tight knit group, and every business is very customer oriented, and there's a bond between these businesses in a small community and their customers. So if one of the businesses leaves, separates, or something happens to one of the businesses, then people get sad about that, and they're disappointed, and but anyway, so I wanted to go there and patron it, but first I had to return my library books. So let's talk about that first. So I did my review for I'm Afraid You Got Dragons. I did a separate review. I haven't done my written review yet, but I'm gonna work on that. And I am actually motivated to get that one written because one of the people which maybe is a silly reason, but someone that I subscribe to on BookTube liked that I was gonna be posting a review soon. So I felt it kind of motivated me. Okay, let me actually get this review written out because I try to go in the order of when I've written my reviews. I've been trying to go in the order of the months of the year when I read the books. But there's been a couple times where I felt inspired to go ahead with with a review of a book I just read. But yeah, I enjoyed that. That was really fun. At some point, I did put on Libby on hold his most famous book, Peter S. Smigol's famous book, The Last Unicorn, which I've seen. I think I mentioned last time that I saw the animated adaptation of The Last Unicorn, but I've never read the book. So I looked to see if it was on Libby, and I got it. And so, but I also have on hold another book. One of the books is actually one of Sylvia Moreno Garcia's books. It was one of the ones that my friend Larissa, because we decided to do a buddy read with her and her fiance, with the two of us and her fiance, which I'll tell you about that and which book we chose for that. But she showed me a screenshot of the books that she was reading currently and listening to on Libby, or that she wanted to listen to, and the Certain Dark Things, I think what the book is called. I saw that one, and that was one I told her that I would consider getting because I could easily get it on Libby. But there was a wait for it, and so I decided to just keep it on hold, and I would listen to it anyway, whether we read it together right now, because the book we're currently reading is a long book. So, but anyway, So back to the library. So I just I'm waiting on those two books, The Last Unicorn and Certain Dark Things. I am also reading the An American Tragedy by Theodore Dreiser, um, which I had a mass market copy of it, but then I ended up getting rid of it because it was actually on the Rory Gilmore reading list, not the one where these are the books that she's actually read, but the one that the list that encompasses all the books mentioned on the show. And that book was on. I don't remember if An American Tragedy was on her list, her specific list that someone created, but it was on the list. And because it was still kind of in the back of my mind, I saw it. I remember it being on that list, not on her specifically list, but on the list that for all the books mentioned in the show. So I ended up getting it from the library, but it's a long one, which I remember it being a chunky book. So I got to book 2 and then decided I was going back and forth. I was trying to decide, did I want to give it another borrow it for another 2 weeks and then return it? I mean, either way, I knew I was not going to finish it because it's a long book. It's a chunkster. It's 500 plus pages, and I could but either way, I was trying to decide. The question is, when would I return it? And I just decided to return it today, and along with I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons, and then I would essentially keep an eye out for the book, like either next time I go to the country bookshop or Books A Million, or ideally the Given bookstore. Although I guess I just realized I think it's called the Outpost, the actual bookstore. The Outpost. See if it ever shows up there. And actually, I didn't see that one, but I saw Drossier's first book there. It was a mass market. It was a Signet Classics edition. His first published book was Sister Carrie, and I did see that one, but one is a mass market, and nothing against mass market. I just don't personally like them. But if you like them, that's great. If you still, you like reading them, that's great. But I don't like their size and, in the small minuscule print. Like, I only would buy them because they were like $7.90, like $8-10, and at the time I wasn't working, so it was I could easily buy a cheap mass market, and it could fit anywhere. Like, I could take it with me and put it in like my bag or something, or my purse or whatever. But as I've gotten older now, I have a job where money is coming in constantly, every few weeks or so, and I'm all about splurging and getting the regular size books. But anyway, so I saw that, but I was like, I want to get An American Tragedy. That's the one I'm reading. So I will at some point I'll keep an eye out for that book. And I did write down where I was in that book. Like, I mean, it's actually easy to, because it's this, it's book 2, the first chapter of book 2. But that one is basically a story about this family. The main character is Clyde, and it's this family, and they live in Kansas, and his parents are missionaries. They're all about teaching the word of God and teaching people to be moral and good Christians and all that. And his peers, because he starts the book when he's like early teens, then it gets up, it gets to where he's in his late teens in the present, and his peers mock his parents, and he's just getting very restless. He doesn't like going to church all the time, and he wants to experience in the world outside of his family and live his own life. And meanwhile, his sister, he has 3 siblings. His older sister, Esta, at some point met a guy, fell in love and they ran away together. And that kind of motivated Clyde to get a job, get a job so he could get out of the house and not have to be around and make his own money, make money and not be around his parents. And he gets a job at one of those convenience stores places, but eventually he ends up getting a job at a hotel, like being, I don't know if he would be like a bellboy or something. And he becomes friends with the rest of the young men that work at the hotel, and like they introduce him to smoking and drinking and alcohol. He gets exposed to all these things that his parents would consider vices, and he's very much annoyed with his parents who kind of sheltered him from all this stuff. And through his co-workers, he meets this girl Hortense, she's very much a flirt. But he's immediately falls in love with her, although I wouldn't call it love. I would say he's more infatuated with her and becomes obsessed with her and going back and forth between he's not good enough for her and wanting her to love him the way he loves her, and he'll do anything for her, and she pretty much takes advantage of that. Well, pretty much, she takes advantage of that because she knows she can get him to buy her things, and he will never break it off with her, even though he should. And she will flirt with other guys in front of him. Like at one point they're hanging out, borrowed some guy's car and they're hanging out, and they go sledding because it's wintertime. And she's flirting with this one guy that's joined their group, and he gets so jealous. He gets pissed off about her flirting with this guy. And is like cranky the whole time, very irritable, and she will turn whenever he confronts in these kinds of situations. When he would confront her about this, she would turn it around and point out what he was doing wrong, supposedly, and how he was being the bad guy, and how dare he get jealous. Like, she's not allowed to have friends and all that. And like, she does point out that, this one of the girls that was hanging out with them, like, kind of fell on top of Clyde. So she uses an excuse to be like, well, so-and-so was all over you. And the whole time I'm thinking, you guys did not even have a conversation about this. Like, are you in a serious relationship, or can you flirt with other people? Granted, she did warn him, and she's been, but she knows he's an idiot. He's a naive, impressionable idiot. And it's just, I don't know who I'm more frustrated, who's worse? Him for, her for being mean to him and taking advantage of him, or him for being dumb enough to fall for a girl like that. And of course, in his defense, he has never been exposed to anyone except for the people who go to his parents' church and his friends who he probably goes to school with. And in fact, his sister comes back, and it turns out she's pregnant, and the mom doesn't want to expose her other kids or tell her husband about her oldest daughter getting pregnant, so she has her stay at a hotel. And and Clyde kind of has mixed feelings about that, because on the one hand he feels bad for his sister, but I think a part of him kind of resents that now she's put this family in this situation. But I think he's also kind of angry at his mom too. So it's a very intriguing drama, and obviously I want to read more because I want to keep an eye out for the book and read more. Of course, by the time I find the book, unless in the next few weeks I see the book at like a regular size paperback at like Books A Million, or if I decide to get it off at Thrift Books or somewhere, it might be a while before I get to it again. So I might not even remember what I read, and I'll have to start over anyway. But I want to buy it so I can take my time, so I won't feel rushed and have to read it within the 2 weeks. Because that's how long you can have at our library, that's how long, it's a 2-week frame. But I do agree with, I think it was Larissa who said she feels like when it comes to longer books, you should be able to keep it a little bit longer. Like maybe 3 weeks instead of just 2. But even then, I don't know if I would actually finish that book within 3 weeks either. Because I'm reading multiple books at the same time, I'm reading 2 or 3 books. Um, it did, like, on one of the book I'm reading with her and her fiance, Larissa and her fiance, and then the book that I'm reading for Jane Austen July. I got slowed down on those because I was trying to make sure I read the books for that were from the library. Because that's why I'm hesitant to go to the library. Why it's taking me so long to go back? Because I'm prioritizing my library books. I have to return them at some point. Even though I can renew them, I still have to give them back to the library within a time frame. And it gives me feelings of anxiety and pressure. I'm like, okay, I have to get this book done, and I want to get it read. So, and you can tell me, oh, well, it won't matter. It doesn't matter. You're just borrowing the book, and you can renew it and all that. But I still feel obligated to be like, I borrowed this book, so I need to read this book. And that's why my original intent when I went to the library was to get only one book, but I did bring 2 books. The good news is those 2 books are like only in the under 300 pages. I was about to say dollars, but pages. So let me go ahead and show you those books. Now that I've told you about the 2 that I returned. Okay, so first we have. Okay, so this is a book that I heard about from. I don't know if it was. I can't remember who it was that talked about. Maybe I want to see if Steve Donahue talked about this, but it might have been someone else though. Or like might have been Greg from Supposedly Fun. I don't know. It was someone, but talked about this book, and this is probably not the time of year to read this book because going by the fact it's called Nicked refers to Saint Nicholas. So it's probably I should have waited until like November, December, but I saw it there and I immediately got my attention. I knew it was one of the ones I wanted to read. Which makes me wonder if this has an audiobook and I could have found it on Libby if I wanted it. But this is based more on the actual saint, not necessarily the myth of Santa. I think. Let me read the description because I don't remember like the whole I don't remember the premise 100%, but okay, so the year is 1087 and a pox is sweeping the Italian city of Bari when a lowly monk is visited by Saint Nicholas. In his dreams, he interprets the vision as a call to serve the sick, but his superiors and the power brokers they serve have different plans for the tender-hearted brother Nicephorus. Enter Tyann, a charismatic treasure hunter renowned for liberating holy relics from their tombs. The 700-year-old bones of Saint Nicholas are rumored to weep a mysterious liquid that can heal the sick. Tyann says, for the humble price of a small fortune, he will steal the bones and deliver them to Bari, curing the plague and restoring glory to the fallen city. And Nicephorus, the dreamer, will be his guide. So I remember hearing that premise before and being really intrigued by it. The idea of, I want to say it was a Greg or Supposedly Fun. Maybe not. I wish I could remember who talked about this book, but and put it on my radar. But yeah, the idea of a story that's focused on Saint Nicholas and I love stories where people are trying to unearth the past, and the idea of like conspiracy theories about objects from the past having mystical attributes and being able to do those kinds of stories that is this really what it seems like? Does it really do that? Is it I guess in a way that's kind of like magical realism. Like, well, although magical realism, like, there's a hint of actual possibly magic, and I don't know. I just kind of like the idea of finding these objects because I would love to be able to do that. Like, go on a quest to find a magical object, but at the same time, I don't know if I could. I don't in deep down. I don't know if I would because of the danger of that and not being safe, and not feeling safe in the day. So it like I can at least like read it, experience it through literature. Like that's why I still like Dan Brown. I know a lot of people take issue with Dan Brown because there are things in his books and not every in Dan Brown. Not that he tried to claim his books were based on truth, but the like his premises are really fun. Um, and I still kind of have a soft spot for his work, but I mean, yeah, he's not great with the writing the female characters, but they're still fun. Anyway, so and this is like under. This is about. Yep, 220. Oh, he's okay. Sorry, I'm reading the note about the author, and it says he's written picture books for children, novels for young readers, so young adult books, and graphic novels of ancient French tales. I think I've seen his satirical science fiction novel Feed. I think I've seen that book. But anyway, but even though now is probably not a good time, I probably should have, like I said, should have waited until like November, December to get this book, to borrow this book. But again, I saw it and I, was like, let me grab it. And then the other book I got from the library was one of those award books. I want to say like maybe the Booker. Let me see. Does it? It doesn't say it on here, but I know that it did. It was one of those books that was on a like international award prize winner or something, or was nominated. I don't know which one. But this is about a group of, I think they're Irish, group of Irish gentlemen, and I think it's like they decide to put on one of the Greek plays, one of the famous Greek tragedies or something. I don't know if they're like in a prison or something, but let me. On the island of Sicily, amid the Peloponnesian War, the Syracusans had figured out what to do with the surviving Athenians who had the gall to invade their city. They herded the sorry prisoners of war into a rock quarry and left them to rot. Looking for a way to pass the time, Lampo and Gelion, two unemployed potters with a soft spot for poetry and drink, head down to the quarry to feed the Athenians, if and only if they can manage a few choice lines from the great playwright Euripides. Before long, the two maids hatch a plan to direct a full-blown production of Medea. After all, you can hate the people but love their art. But as opening night approaches, what started as a lark quickly sets in motion a series of extraordinary events, and our wayward heroes begin to realize that staging a play can be as dangerous as fighting a war, with all sorts of risks to life, limb, and friendship. But this was a book that Katie from Books and Things absolutely loves, and she was hoping it would be the winner. I wish I could remember what award it was nominated for, but I remember she wanted it to be a winner. Was it? Maybe it was. What's that? I'm trying to think of the Walter Scott Prize. Maybe it was a Walter Scott Prize nomination. I don't remember, but I remember she loved this book and wanted it to win whichever award it was nominated for, but I don't think it won. Because if it did, it probably would eventually have that little sticker thing on it that would say the winner or the nominated for this award. But it just sounded, like I said, I saw it and I was like, oh, I remember that book, and I remember it sounding kind of entertaining. So it sounded entertaining. So those are the books I got from the library. Okay, now on to the bookshop. So first, I had a very awkward moment at the bookshop because, like I said, I wanted to patron the coffee shop. So I got my books, paid for them and everything, and decided to go to the coffee shop, get a snack. I wasn't sure if I wanted, lunch or a snack. So I decided to get a snack. And all I saw, they have their menu items on a blackboard, written in kind of a calligraphy, or it might have been calligraphy or cursive, but anyway, I saw at the bottom Cinnabon, and I see the words at the bottom that that basically explained that it was a coffee drink, and I was like, I got a flat white, and then I was like, oh, Cinnabon, and all, like I said, it was big calligraphy letter Cinnabon. And the woman did ask me, the girl at the register did ask me, do you want both? And I was like, yeah, and because I was confused, I was thinking it was an actual Cinnabon. So then, she asked for name, so I go to sit down, and then she hands me my drinks, and it's like, oh, I'm realizing that I accidentally ordered 2 drinks, because the Cinnabon is a cinnamon drink. And it's good. Luckily, one of the drinks I ordered was a not as sweet drink. Still good, So I was able to give it to my mom. But I was just so embarrassed for that and felt so stupid. And I went up to the girl. I saw the girl, and she wasn't at the register at the time. And I saw her, and I explained to her, oh, it was an accident. And she just kind of, she looked at me, kind of smiled, and was like, okay. And I just stood there thinking, because she went back to work, and I was thinking, oh, she's got to do her work, so she'll give me attention again. And I just kind of sat, I just waited, and then luckily someone did come to the register. A young man came to the register and was asking what was wrong, and I explained to him and everything, and he was like, oh, do you want a refund? So I got some of my money back, but he was just like, oh, just keep the drink. And I just felt so embarrassed, and it felt so awkward, because I just wanted to get a cinnamon. I just saw cinnamon bun. Well, it looked like cinnamon, so I was thinking, oh, I want to get a cinnamon bun with my flat white, and it was just, I just felt so stupid after. And I always feel awkward when I make mistakes like that, and I'm so worried if I complain about it, then I'm gonna sound like one of those rude people who's like, I didn't order this. And I was still worried, and I was worried because, I approached her about it, because she was the one who took my order. I saw her, and I explained, and I just kind of stood there, and I was like, and I'm just now thinking, I hope I didn't sound like one of those rude people, because I didn't intend it like that. Did not want to drink 2 coffee drinks, because that's too much caffeine. But I guess she assumed it was just oh, she's getting one of the drinks is for someone else. But yeah, I just felt afterward, I felt so embarrassed, and it's so awkward, and I'm someone who will get, when I feel embarrassed, I can get upset, and, as I've gotten older, I'm better at that, not letting things like that get to me. But yeah, it was very awkward. But luckily my mom was willing to take the drink. But anyway, so let's talk about the books I actually got. So I've actually been thinking about this. So, I can't remember what the video. It was one of those channels that I haven't watched his channel enough times. But what I've seen so far, I do like. So I was watching, and I feel bad that I don't remember the channel name or but it was one of those where he was listing books for some, or no, he was discussing like things that you shouldn't ask a reader, that are things that regular people that don't read, or people only read a little bit, will ask a reader that for us is annoying, and we think it's a ridiculous question. Like, in one of the questions, one of the comments was talking about how people will ask him, why do you have so many books about this person? And he was, saying how, or this topic, and, he was talking about, saying that you don't read one book about that topic or about that person, because, why would you read there's so many, like, why would you read one book when on a topic or a person when there's so many people with different interpretations of that person, like, and so many, like, people that have, and so many different perspectives, and there might be things that they don't know, or they might have a biased opinion on something. But anyway, so that made me think about how I have the Ron Chernow biography on Hamilton on audiobook via my phone. Not on Libby, but it's one that I bought because my iPhone does have an app for an audiobook app, but it's not like Libby where it's free. It's, you're buying the books. So I ended up buying, because it's such a long book, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna absolutely love it, so I bought the book, an audiobook, the Hamilton biography by Chernow. That way it wouldn't take up space. I mean, I'm still spending money on the book, but it won't take up space, so I almost feel a little, like, I would feel a little less guilty if I ended up not loving it. I mean, it's still, still a bit of money, so hopefully I would, and I did like it, and it was very informative. But then I know one person commented, and I apologize, I don't remember who you are, but, and I'm not, I just, but he was not a fan of Ron Chernow's biography, and he recommended, I think it was and he did recommend a book to me, a different Hamilton book that he thinks would be better. And again, I apologize, but I don't remember what that book was. But I have been meaning to, at some point, I would like to check out other sources on books on Hamilton. So I saw this there in the biography section, on the biography shelf. Alexander Hamilton, a revolutionary. Martha Bracken, I don't know how to say the last name, but, so let's see. Gets swept up in this founding father's incredible true story, his brilliant scholarship and military career, his groundbreaking and enduring policy which shapes American government, his salacious and scandalous personal life, his heart-rending, richly informed by Hamilton's own writing, and featuring archival artwork. This is an in-depth biography of an extraordinary man. So yeah, I saw this like, oh, well, good. I can read another biography, get another person's perspective. So I'm wondering, because now whenever I see this young, scrappy, and hungry, I think of the Hamilton the musical based on Ron Chernow's biography. So I'm, hopefully that's more of something that Hamilton might have said, and not, not that it would be bad, but just that I don't know if I would want, I hope that this is separate from Chernow's biography and not, like, connected to that or something. If that makes any sense. And this one is a little shorter. This one is actually, it looks like it's a bit shorter than Ron Chernow's biography. And like I said, that one person felt like, the person who commented, I remember them saying they felt like the Chernow's biography was overwritten. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting another person's perspective on Hamilton and but, yeah. Okay, and then we have, so the other two books are classics. So one of this is Marquis of O and Other Stories by German, I think this is German, Heinrich von Kleist. Heinrich. Okay, so let me read the back. I mean, I did read the back in the store, but before I bought it. In the Marquis of O, a virtuous widow finds herself unaccountably pregnant. And although the baffled Marquise has no idea when this happened, she must prove her innocence to her doubting family and discover whether the perpetrator is an assailant lover or Michael Kohlhaas. Depicts an honorable man who feels compelled to violate the law in his search for justice, while other tales explore. Oh, that must be the name of one of the other stories. While other tales explore the singular realm of uncanny, such as the beggar woman of Loco Carno, in which an old woman's ghost drives a heartless nobleman to madness, and Saint Cecilia, which portrays four brothers possessed by an uncontrollable religious mania. In this volume reflect Kleist's preoccupations with the deceptiveness of human nature and the unpredictability of the physical world. Okay, and then we have Madame Lafayette's The Princess of Cleves. Poised between the fading world of chivalric romance and a new psychological realism, Madame de Lafayette's novel Passion and Self-Deception marks a turning point in the history of the novel. When it first appeared anonymously in... Okay, that's right. This description doesn't really say what this one is about. But there is, it was written during French classicism and aroused controversy among critics and readers, particularly because of this extraordinary confession which is given during the climax. So it was written between the fading world of chivalric romance and their psychological realism. So they just sound really kind of intriguing, and I'm definitely trying to expand my horizons and read different types of classics, and these are some I've just never heard. And they also feel very much like Emma Angelina kind of books. Great channel, by the way. I will, if I remember, I will post the link, which I have one of her videos I started right before I went to go to bed, but it was getting late and I was falling asleep, so I put it on my save for later videos. But I will post the link to her channel. But she, because she's a fun channel. I really like watching her videos, and these just feel like books that she would get, that she would check out as far as her classics go. And the other thing I love about Emma Angelina is that she's one of those booktubers who will read something like read Sarah J. Maas, but she will also read something like these two books. A lot of times those are my favorite YouTube channels, booktube channels, is the ones where they read a mixture of classics and modern books. So that's what we did. So let me go ahead and check everything. Okay. First we have my two library books, Nicked and Glorious Exploits. So those two. And then the books I bought were Alexander Hamilton, Revolutionary by Martha Bokendrau. Elizabeth Sarah. I need to see her name written in regular print. I forgot how to say it. The Marquise of O and Other Stories. And then Madame de Lafayette, The Princess of Cleves. A new translation by Terence Cave. So I'm excited to get to these books at some point. In particular, I mean, the library books I will get to in the next 2 weeks, obviously. Okay, so I didn't mention the book I'm reading with Larissa and her fiance, Jacob. The book I'm reading with them is Fire and Blood by George R. R. Martin, which is a book about the Targaryen family, the Targaryen dynasty. So I feel like it's the type of book that's more for the hardcore fans who want to know about the world of Song of Ice and Fire and explore it. Because this Fire and Blood isn't really a story. It is actually more like, it's written like a history book, where it's telling you the history of the Targaryen family 300 years before the events of the show Game of Thrones. Because now there is a show based on this book. And from what I've heard, it's basically the show is the more accurate events that happened, while the biography is more someone's observations and what they got from their being in the midst of, what they've learned over the years. So it doesn't give you everything. Like, one of the things that Larissa said was that she noticed that because of the way it's written, you don't really get to know the characters as people. I mean, you kind of do, although you kind of do a little bit. Because, like, through their actions and their choices as the rulers of the Seven Kingdoms, you get to see what choices that they make throughout the story. Like, each, like, when one of the characters defies their council, or deciding how they're going to rule the Seven Kingdoms. Like, Maegor Targaryen you get the impression that he had a temper, and he was very much a warrior and all about the fight and violence, and really, and had this very controlling personality, and he wanted the king wanted to be the king because he thought he deserved it, and he would be a better king because he was all about power and control and, and violence. So you get some idea about these characters and who they are as people through their actions. But you don't really get to know them on a micro level. You get to know them more on a macro level, if that makes sense. So it's definitely more for people who want to just are really passionate about knowing about this world and want to, know the history of the Seven Kingdoms. Or at least particularly the Targaryen family. Before, the Baratheon, before, like, they, what is his name? Can't remember. Oh, Robert's Rebellion, which is how the events that happen right before the show starts, the Game of Thrones show, in the books. Which I wonder, because I do believe George R. R. Martin had intended to write a sequel to Fire and Blood, which I don't know if he's doing that right now, because he's also going to write, a lot of people are not happy that he hasn't done anything with the last 2 books in his original Song of Ice and Fire series. Like, he keeps updating people. And I think he's getting annoyed. Because people keep bugging him and, giving him a hard time at this. And he just wants it to be good. And it's taken him a long time. But also, these people, us fans, have been waiting patiently. And it's been years since he written a book in that series. It's been quite a few years. So it's one of those, like, is it fair to either the author? Are we being fair to the author? But are the fans being fair? Like, are we being fair to the, like, is it, is it fair of us to put pressure on George R. R. Martin? Like, because if we put too much pressure, he might not write it at all, or like we might never get it, or like, which people are, granted, people are already thinking that as is, that he's not gonna, by the time that he's gonna die before he writes it, and they're already thinking about who could write the end of the books. And no, Brandon Sanderson does not fit George R. R. Martin's kind of writing style. Like, so far, I agree with what other people say, which is Joe Abercrombie might be a good option. He understands George R. R. Martin's world. I don't know if Robin Hobb could do it, but she might not want to. And the fact that, but anyway. So it's like, is it fair? Are we putting too much pressure on George R. R. Martin? Are we being fair to him? But then the fans have, those of us who read the series, I mean, I haven't. The reason why I'm not as mad because I'm attempting to reread it, and I still haven't picked up Storm of Swords yet. But it's, but the fans have been waiting patiently. It's been years, more than a few years. So it's one of those. So it's like, fans have been waiting patiently. And, maybe he it's like, does he owe us or not? I'm sure most fans would say, yeah, he owes us, but yeah, so it's a kind of messed up situation. I mean, at least he's keeping people updated. But then again, that might be not enough. But, it could be worse. Like, it could be like, the situation with, what's that one? That I cannot think of that one. There was another author that a lot of people, fantasy author, that it's the same thing, a similar situation. But anyway, so I don't have, like, I'm not as angry about it, but I do find it's a crazy situation. But I only bring it up because I think he did imply that he did want to do a sequel to that book. But, it's like, maybe he needs to get at least one of the books before, from the original series written before he writes another book. Even if it's the same world, most people have been waiting eagerly and patiently for him to finish the main series. But I just think it's so cool, though, that authors like him and Tolkien, too, have basically treated their worlds, their fantasy world, as a real place. And they've created, like, I think Martin, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Martin, like Tolkien, Tolkien created Elvish. And I think that George R. Martin created the Dothraki language. I think. I'm not 100% sure. If I'm wrong about that, someone, correct me or whatever, but in a nice, polite, non-condescending way, please. But I want to say I've heard that he did. Like, when the show came out, he created the Dothraki language for the show. I mean, I know it can't compare to, I don't know if it can compare to what Tolkien did with Elvish, how he created the Elvish language. But that both authors, both of them creating, and then, in a way, Brandon Sanderson is sort of doing that with his Cosmere. I mean, he hasn't created any languages, but all his books are interconnected in their own universe, and the same thing, Robin Hobb. And Stephen King kind of feels like his books have become a universe. So whether it's a whole other world or just like a magical world or a world that's similar to, or authors that create worlds similar to ours, but they're not necessarily they don't have to have their own language or anything, but just like when authors put in that a little bit of extra effort to make their world hint that their world is a lot bigger than what the taste that we're given. Like, because I like to imagine in my head that those worlds do exist and that, you can, like, study them like they're a real place. Like, just kind of like how you have world in history, like you have our history. And, you can take classes, world history, US history, and then I'm sure every country has their own version, like a class that you can take on their world's history. Their country's history. But just that idea is really fun. I think that is really fun. So I love how George R. R. Martin wrote this book, Fire and Blood, which is based on the history of the Targaryens. But like I said, it might not be for every person who's watched this, gotten into the show. Like, if you're, I think it's one of the people who wanna know more about the world and don't mind it being told in a more fun, more like a history book kind of way. Because it's not a story, it's a history book. But a history book of a made-up world. But yeah, we're having fun. I'm having fun, and I'm glad they're interested in this book, because I attempted a buddy read with someone before and it didn't go well because both of us were not feeling the book. We were both kind of bored. Although that book that I was reading with that person on like Goodreads, or I don't know if they're subscribed to my channel or they just found me on Goodreads. I don't remember, but it was Hunchback of Notre Dame, and actually now I want to give that another shot. Funnily enough. But anyway. Okay, so that is my update, and I'm feeling tired. I was hoping that having, like, my coffee drink would help, but now I started to feel tired again. Maybe I should have drank that flat white after all, so I'd be, oh, wait, I am reading Mansfield Park. It's a reread, and I do have a lot to say, but I'm gonna wait before I because it's actually stuff I've said before when I've talked about this book. Like, I think I did a review on it last time. But my feelings of the book have not changed. That I still really like it. I'm one of those people who actually enjoys Mansfield Park. I still am like, I get frustrated with the character Miss Aunt Norris. I was gonna say Miss Norris, but that's Aunt Norris. That woman drives me crazy. But she's also a very entertaining character in her, like, prejudiced against Fanny and thinking that Fanny cannot compare to her favorite precious nieces, who are so much better than Fanny in her mind, and the possibility that Fanny cannot, like, anytime Fanny gets a little bit of attention and happiness, Aunt Norris has to take that away. And then, like, but also, Mary Crawford, who every time I see her name, I keep wanting to refer to her as Mary Crawley, which is the name of the character in the show, Downton Abbey. But I just love her. Which, it's funny because she's probably more of a character people would read about, that would enjoy reading about her today than they would Fanny, which I think is part of the reason why not everyone loves this book, is because of, they don't like Fanny's character, and Mary Crawford's a much more compelling character, because she's so, like, it's interesting because she shows a caring side, but in the end of the day, that she doesn't genuinely, you can't trust her affections. Like, she's a very fickle, free-spirited woman, very ambitious woman. So I just like, what the book explores, which is morality, and I admire Fanny's character. But anyway, Yeah, so I'm also reading that one. I'm almost done with that one. But I didn't really, I guess in a way that's the only way I participate in Jane Austen July, because July's almost over. I did intend to read her Austen's Juvenilia, which I might read in August, even if I don't get to it by the end of the month. Just, continue with Jane, like read what I intended for Jane Austen July in August. But anyway, so I wanted to mention that because that was my plan to talk about Mansfield Park, but I totally forgot. But anyway, I hope you are currently enjoying your reading. As always, do you guys use the library? At least now, I can say I can talk about the library more and show you what I've gotten from the library, because I know, like, I always ask because I want to show that I do still care about the library. It's just I was, feeling anxious about it because I'm like thinking I'm wanting to prioritize my library books when I get library books, but then I'm not reading my own books because I gotta return the library books, and I feel like I borrowed them, so I should read those books. But at least now I can talk about both types of books. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video and are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!